Hi, Jerry Jenkins here talking about all things writing. Today, a quick video on describing the settings in your stories. One of the toughest nuts for you to crack as a novelist is where to start. 2/3 of my more than 200 published books are novels, so I've faced this dilemma more than 140 times. Trust me, starting never gets easier, no matter how many times you've done it. But there are common errors to avoid. I know because I've made them. And I've also asked agents and editors what mistakes they see in beginners' manuscripts. Ready for one of the most common errors? Starting by describing the setting of your opening scene. Now, don't get me wrong, settings are important, but we've all been sent napping by novels whose covers and titles promise to transport us and yet begin with some variation of "the house sat in a deep wood surrounded by" gag. Now, of course, it's important to give readers a sense of where you are. Readers need to feel grounded. But here's a pro tip. Readers have little patience for description, especially as a separate element. They want to dive into the story, the action, what's happening. In fact, readers often skip over paragraphs of description to get to the heart of the story. So if you're wondering how to describe your setting, I have a simple answer. Don't. But you say, how do I then establish where we are? Well, like any other reader, I feel an immediate need to know where and when things take place. The problem comes when we novelists make that mistake of describing the setting as a separate element. Sorry, but that's the very definition of what professionals in the business call literary throat clearing. It's on a par with an information dump, unloading a cargo of backstory because we don't give our readers credit for deducing the story from the opening scene. That can quickly bore your reader to death, the cardinal sin of storytelling. So how do you set the scene without describing it? You layer in description as part of the story. That way it becomes almost invisible because mentions of what things look and feel and sound like register in the theater of the reader's minds while they're concentrating on the action, the dialogue, the tension and drama and conflict that keep them turning the pages. As they read, they're picking up all the details they need so that they can be drawn into your setting, though they may be unaware how you worked all that in. Consider these two setting examples. First, describing the setting of a story before starting the action. London in the 1860s was a cold, damp, foggy city, crisscrossed with cobblestone streets and pedestrians carefully dodging the droppings of steeds that pulled all manner of public conveyance. One such pedestrian was Lucy Knight, a beautiful young unattached woman in a hurry to get to Piccadilly Circus. An eligible bachelor had asked her to meet him there. Now, I shouldn't have to tell you that such an opening is all telling, no showing, and that the question of how to describe the setting has been answered, but not correctly. So here's an example of describing the setting by layering it into the story. Start with a location and date tag, London's West End, 1862. Lucy Knight mince-stepped around clumps of horse dung as she hurried toward Regent Street. Must not be late, she told herself. What would he think? She carefully navigated the cobblestones as she crossed to hail a hansom cab, which she preferred for its low center of gravity and smooth turning. Lucy did not want to appear as if she'd been tossed about in a carriage, especially tonight. "Not wearing a ring, I see," the driver said as she boarded. "I beg your pardon? Nice-looking lady like yourself, out alone after dark in a cold fog?" "You needn't worry about me, sir. I'm going only to the circus." "Piccadilly it is, ma'am." First, the location tag, London's West End, 1862, goes flush left before the first paragraph and saves us a lot of narration, allowing the story to emerge. And yes, the second sample is longer, but that's because we're not telling, we're showing. But notice how readers learn everything they need to know about the setting and about the main character from the action and dialogue, rather than just from being told these things through description. This is also what we writing coaches mean when we urge you to show rather than tell. You'll have to remind yourself of this daily for the rest of your life, but once you add it to your writing tool belt, you'll find it adds power to your prose and keeps your reader's interest. The key, as you can see from the examples above, is to layer in your description. Maybe when Lucy meets her new gentleman friend, he grabs her and pulls her into an alley, saying, "Come here where no one will see us." There she might scrape her knuckles against a brick wall and wish both hands were free so she could tighten her coat against the wind. Incorporating description that way, showing rather than telling, can alone revolutionize your novel. Apply this setting technique immediately and see how it picks up the pace and adds power. It forces you to highlight only the most important details, triggering the theater of your reader's mind. If it's not important enough to become part of the action, your reader won't miss it anyway. But you've read classic novelists who use description exactly the way I'm advising against. So what gives? Two things. First, if those novels were written before TV and movies, let alone smartphones, they were aimed at audiences who loved to take the time to settle in with a book for days at a time. Second, if those novels were written in our generation and still succeeded with that kind of writing, it's probably because the author is a master. If you can write at that level, you can break all the rules you want. I can't, so I'll stick with what works for today's readers. How about you? If you found this video helpful, like it, comment on it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. And if you're looking for help in other areas of your writing, check out my blog at jerryjenkins.com/blog. You can also sign up for my 5 Days to Better Writing workshop, a free sneak peek into my Writers Guild, and access to my best writer training. By signing up with absolutely no obligation, you'll gain access to a free video of one of my training sessions each day for 5 days. Just click the link in the description below for details. All the best with your writing, and I'll see you next time.